Well, it certainly wasn't pretty. Against the team without its two best players, Syracuse football struggled. The defense allowed over 450 yards of total offense. Meanwhile, the offense didn't score a touchdown in the first half. On top of that, the Orange committed a season-high 11 penalties and trailed by 18 points. But somehow, someway, SU powered through it and pulled out a 38-31 victory against Virginia Tech in overtime. Now, the Cuse is headed to a bowl game for the third straight season, which hasn't happened in the 21st century. For the ups and the downs, we have it all, from a roller coaster game in the Dome. Don't go anywhere, because Orange Press Pass starts right now. Welcome inside the CitrusTV studios for another edition of Orange Press Pass alongside Luke Burgess and Nathaniel Cunningham. I'm Skyler, Wilkes. Guys, what a game this was. Syracuse sluggish start. Seemed like things were going south really quick. More of those November late half season follies. Somehow they pulled it out.
Yeah, embodying the cardiac Cuse in the truest meaning of the word, Skyler. It really was an exciting way for this one to go. And yeah, Nathaniel, certainly a great game. Syracuse is going to gain a lot of confidence from this.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly what you need, especially after Pittsburgh. Especially after you try to put that one behind you, you go through, you say this is the one that you need to get, you pick this one up, big win.
So Luke, we'll start with you. First thoughts, first takeaways from this overtime thriller.
Yeah, Skyler, the truth of the matter is LeQuint Allen single-handedly won this game today for Syracuse. His performance was so impressive, 121 yards on the ground. It's the first time that he's been over 100 yards all season. And he had 21 carries, which ties a season high. He had 21 against NC State, had 91 rushing yards there. It just shows you when you put the rock in LeQuint Allen's hands, he makes plays consistently. And today he was the driving force of this win for SU.
I mean, you kind of mentioned and took a little point out of what my first thought was. The pieces of the puzzle are starting to come together. This is a Syracuse team that's finally filling itself out. You're seeing the offense be what they can be. The defense had excellent drives at times. Even the special teams, who thought we were going to be talking about the special teams this much, has actually been able to be good apart from the block PAT. You're starting to see the Syracuse football team fully put it together, and there's still a little bit of the season left. There's still higher expectations.
To your point, Jack Stonehouse was fantastic today.
Yeah, great punter as well.
Well, there were some special team highlights. Who would have thought about that, like you said, Nate? So there was a lot that went down in this game. So I think it's time we take a look exactly what went down inside the JMA Wireless Dome. It's homecoming weekend with Syracuse and Virginia Tech. The Orange back at home for the first time in almost 40 days. Hokies came in on a 3-game winning streak, and Kyron Jones, one of the top quarterbacks in the ACC, he wasn't even playing. This is Colin Schlee making his first start since the 2023 LA Bowl against UCLA. Starts the game off with a 48-yard strike to Stephen Gosnell, and then the Hokies bring out the trickery. Jalen Lane on an end around, 7 yards for the touchdown. So the Hokies draw first blood. Schlee, he was a 13 All-MAC player in 2022 at Kent State. Another rope year to Stephen Gosnell. That's 44 yards. And Schlee, he can do it with his legs. Dives in. This is all Virginia Tech early in the first quarter, 14-0. Syracuse, first time we're seeing the offense go. LeQuint Allen, 14 yards. Didn't have as much success last week. That sets up a Jackson Kennedy, the third-string kicker, transfer from Cornell, the third kicker used by Syracuse this season.
Really refreshing to see a 44-yarder look easy, Skyler.
And Kyle McCord, with his team trailing 14-3, looked like they had a chance, but he threw his 12th interception of the season. That was Mansour Delane who took it away. Syracuse another chance though to get some points before the half. Just over a minute to go, Daryl Gill catches it. He's fighting for extra yards and he coughs up the football. So the Hokies lead 14-3 at halftime. Syracuse, Nate, without a point in that first half, while Ollie Jennings, he reels it in. The Marshall transfer, catching from the UCLA transfer, 21-3. Seems like it's all Hokies until now. Justice Ross Simmons, a lot of talk about transfers, all Mountain West honorable mention. His first catch in orange, and he goes the distance.
I mean, that's exactly what you need to see there. That's a guy that made it a point that he was going to create some offense and did it big.
At Trevor Pena, he can create some offense. Takes a screen over 40 yards. LeQuint Allen dives over the top of the pile. He gets into the end zone for the touchdown. So the second of the game, Syracuse really in this game now. It's 21-18. And the defense, Deuce Chestnut, he struggled a bit, but came up big with a forced fumble.
Yeah, it's huge to see Chestnut kind of gain that confidence in the second half because, like you mentioned, Skyler, he had a rough first half, and it led to this.
Justice Ross Simmons, a second touchdown. He had 3 all of last year at Colorado State. Colin Schlee goes down, William Watson comes in, doesn't matter. That's Malachi Thomas who races in. He had 3 touchdowns against Syracuse back in 2021. So the Hokies back in front. It's 28-24. The Orange, they're still alive. Trevor Pena down the goal line. LaQuinn Allen, you saw him do it before. Nate, this time he dives over the pylon to get in the end zone.
3 touchdowns in a game, 120 yards. That's what you need out of your all-ACC running back.
So they get into overtime. LaQuinn Allen spinning, and he gets into the end zone. His 3rd touchdown of the game, he won it for the Orange in Las Vegas, but the defense still needed to make a stop. Colin Schlee trying to make things happen, and he coughs up the football. Marlowe Wax jars it loose. Fadil Diggs comes out with it, and the Orange get this 2nd overtime victory of the season, the 1st since 2011. This game was absolutely wild. It's a tale of 2 halves for sure.
Right, maybe not the way that you want it to go when you draw it up in the playbook beforehand, but the execution and the storylines are there, Skyler. You pick up another ACC win on home turf, and I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air to come away with a win when you didn't play so great.
And I mean, take a look at Kyle McCord. Sure, is he necessarily having the stat lines that he's had before? That's actually a career low in pass attempts, 35. That's a little crazy, or at least a season low in pass attempts.
And he didn't get to 300 yards.
He didn't get to 300 yards. He's gotten to 300 yards every game this season, but it's still a pretty effective game when you're completing almost 70% of your passes and you throw a couple touchdowns.
Not just Colin Schlee in the game for Kyron Jones, but Bashal Tootin, one of the top running backs in arguably the country. He was replaced. Malachi Thomas stepped up in a decent role, but when you don't have Drones and you don't have Tootin, it makes for a tough break. Partially maybe why Syracuse was able to pull out this 38-31 victory. But you've now heard enough from Luke, Nate, and I. We bring in our reporter, Chloe Smarz from the Dome. Chloe, this game, we've talked about it, was back and forth throughout. Syracuse, really sluggish start early on. What was that turning point, the defining moment for SU to help turn the tides?
Yeah, Skyler, this was a game that was truly a tale of 2 halves. And for me, it looked at the touchdown pass from Justice Ross Simmons, a 55-yard touchdown reception. That changed the entirety of this game. If you look at the first half, this offensive passing attack was non-existent, only 54 yards through the air. And also the wide receiver group was getting bullied a bit. Trevor Pena had some drops, Jackson Meeks had drops, and Amari Hatcher on Kyle McCord's interception in the end zone arguably could have made a better play on the ball to allow that play not to happen. Justice Ross Simmons, someone that Fran Brown talked about in the press conference, he's a tough guy. And that touchdown catch, he said, quote, brought them hope. He's someone that's coming in and day out, every practice, treating that hamstring injury, and something that even Justice Ross Simmons, even questioning redshirting, because he wasn't getting what he expected on this team. That play led to also LaQuinn Allen just being able to be utilized more in the run game. When you can balance both the pass and the run, that led to way more success for Syracuse on offense, and then the defense just fed over that. But what a great day for Justice Ross Simmons.
Chloe, you mentioned some of the struggles in the first half, some of those Syracuse receivers getting a little bit bullied. What was the body language like on the sideline in the first half when the struggles were there? And then as things started to come together in the second half, how did that change?
Well, Luke, in the first half, it was very sad here in the JMA Wireless Dome. It was glimpses of the Pitt game, and you thought, oh, here we go again. Heading into halftime, the fans here in the JMA Wireless Dome were booing this team. And Fran Brown talked about it in the press conference. He was asked a lot about what happened in the locker room at halftime. What did you say to them? And he kind of came back to the same thing, that dart mentality. That was what he needed his team to embrace and to just play Syracuse football. There was actually a point in time on the field where LaQuinn Allen had that unsportsmanlike conduct call, and no one really kind of knew what was going on. And Fran Brown made a little joke about it in the press conference, saying that was, quote, boy, you know what the word after that is. And to play like a man. I think that's what really changed this entirety of the game. Also, the offensive production, the defensive production, Marlowe Wax, a big part of it. You felt the energy here. Everyone here started getting excited. One big play after another, defensive stops. And the Virginia Tech also started beating themselves up as well. That only helped Syracuse. But Fran Brown really wanted to emphasize the fact that that dart mentality is the reason that they won this game. They never gave up. And you saw that in the second half.
Hey, Chloe, you mentioned Marlo Wax, the effect that he had out there. I'm curious what kind of effect that he's had on this defense as an entirety, especially after missing the first half of the season and having a really, really good day today.
Yeah, Nate. Marlo Wax came into the press conference post-game and said that he walked into today's game very emotional. The fact that the last time he stepped foot on this field, he didn't know if he would ever come back again. And he had arguably, dare I say, a career day for coming off an injury. And he's still not 100% healthy. And he had 1.5 sacks. He had 6 solo tackles. Marlo Wax is the anchor of this defense, and we've known that about the Syracuse team. Sure, Derek McDonald has done a great job coming back in and helping this team, but Marlo Wax talked about being able to be around Justin Barron, being able to be around Fidel Diggs. Having those people around him, they trust him. He is the toughness of this defense, the energy that he brings. You saw it in the second half of this game. Arguably, we don't know if Syracuse would have won this game if he didn't come away with that final fumble recovery. Marlo Wax has been the anchor of this defense throughout his time here at Syracuse, and we saw it here tonight. Expect him to get healthier as the weeks go on, but what a win for Syracuse today.
Chloe, what a win indeed. Chloe Smarz, thanks so much for joining us. Be safe getting out of the dome. Make sure to avoid any of that basketball court trouble that they're setting up in there. Thanks so much for joining us. But we still have more to come here on Orange Press Pass. Luke and Nate are going to break down a little bit more of what went down inside the dome and how Syracuse pulled off the overtime victory. Welcome back into Orange Press Pass. Skyler Wilkes here alongside Luke Burgess and Nathaniel Cunningham, breaking down the 38-31 overtime victory for Syracuse over Virginia Tech. And one thing that wasn't the case, guys, in last week's loss for Syracuse against Pittsburgh was the rushing attack. If you take all the sacks that Kyle McCord suffered into account, they had a total of 6 rushing yards, which is really bad. But today, they turned the tide. Luke, I know you were expecting it. You were predicting it all along. The rushing attack really got going.
Right. I hope some of our viewers at home tuned into me on Q's Countdown earlier today, because I was talking about how you have to run the dang ball, which is the famous social media phrase that's kind of taken off over the last few weeks. And Syracuse did that today. Tied LaQuint Allen's career, or rather season high, in carries with 21, which was set against NC State previously. He had 91 yards in that game, and then today he has 121. So it just shows you how versatile this offense can be when LaQuint Allen is seriously involved. Got a little bit more of play action stuff that we wanted to see from Allen, and I think he just looked smooth. He makes a lot of big runs, and he converted on a lot of long yardage situations where he was really needed in clutch.
I think what people forget about the fact is that LaQuint Allen is an all ACC running back, and he's a guy that averaged almost 6 yards per carry today. 6 yards per carry. Now, I'm not the best at math. You do that twice, and that's a first down.
Yeah.
That's the type of guy that has efficiency out of the backfield. And then you add on the fact that this attacking offense can already pass. We've proven that they can pass the ball so well, and you have a guy that you can go out there and include that a little bit. It just adds to the depth that Syracuse has when you look at their numbers and it says, oh, they're a top 10 offense in the country.
I think it's so exciting to see his potential, right? Because we already know that this is a passing offense, but the ability that he can extend the attack on the offensive side with his legs is just so enticing, and I think it's really attractive for offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon moving forward.
Well, the rushing attack was certainly impressive. LaQuinn Allen with 121 yards, the 4th most of his career. But enough with the run. We've seen this team run enough today. We like the pass. The pass is fun. And, LaQuinn Allen, more of an older face for Syracuse fans. How about a new one? Justice Ross Simmons. For those out in Fort Collins, Colorado last year, fans of the Rams, they wouldn't be surprised. He was an honorable mention All Mountain West last year, playing behind a really good wide receiver in Torrey Horton. Anyways, comes to Syracuse, back home to Western and Central New York. He's from Rochester and was hurt. Missed almost all of the offseason and didn't have a catch coming into today. About 4 catches for 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. Nate, what a breath of fresh air Justice Ross Simmons brought to this team when Trevor Pena played well, but Oronde Gadsden wasn't necessarily shining, and neither was Jackson Weeks.
Justice Ross Simmons might very well prove to be the difference maker for Syracuse. I mean, it's a guy that adds another layer of depth. We said the same thing about Jackson Meeks after he had his breakout game. And then you said Trevor Pena fell into his shoes. And now there's the potential Darryl Gill situation. There's so many layers to this piece of puzzle, to this cake that is Syracuse's offense, that you get there and you add, now you've got a guy in Justice Ross Simmons who we know is potential. We're finally seeing it. And I mean, go take a look at his first touchdown run. You can clearly see that the injury that he has is still there. Not the best run down the sideline I've ever seen in my life. But he goes out there and he's fighting through it, and that's the important thing. He wants to be on the field, and he proves that for the Syracuse offense, he can add a little bit more depth.
Well, both you guys kind of touched on it. He's been fighting through an early season injury, and I think sometimes we can dismiss off-season injuries as well. He's going to be ready when the season starts, but it shows you that he's just been hampered by this really from step one, and even today, he's still fighting through pain. He actually, which Chloe actually mentioned a minute ago, he asked to redshirt before this week started, and then he goes on, has 88 yards and 2 touchdown catches. So I'm sure that he, right now, is very glad that he didn't do that.
Pretty unbelievable to see. And Fran Brown said he's only at 80%, so it's pretty unbelievable to see him break out like that.
I'm scared of what 100% could
If
be.
100% of Justice Ross Simmons is here, you get OG back, you get guys like Trevor Pena playing at a peak. Whoa. And that's the only word you have.
Yeah.
Whoa.
There are a whole lot of weapons for Syracuse football, which means that these slow starts that continue to happen for the Orange don't really make a whole lot of sense. Last week, obviously, they didn't get on the board at all until that third quarter. And then today, it took until that Justice Ross Simmons catch to really get the offense going. I mean, you had Jackson Kennedy with the field goal early, but no touchdowns in the first half. These slow starts continue to be a pattern.
Right. Well, Kyle McCord really said it at the start of his media availability today. He said, we just keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And there's not really much you can do if you're not giving your playmakers a chance to make plays. Sure, Skyler, you can talk about Trevor Pena. You can talk about Oronde Gadsden, LaQuinn Allen. The list goes on and on. Jackson Meeks at one point looked like he could be the #1 receiver. He wasn't even supposed to start at the beginning of the year. But if you're not getting these guys the ball in positions to make plays, then it doesn't matter. And that was kind of the conversation we were having with LaQuinn Allen coming into today, was that he just simply wasn't being utilized enough. And once you put these guys in the position to succeed, they clearly have the ability to do it. And it just happened today for Ross Simmons. You hope that that can continue now, and maybe it can continue a little bit quicker. Kyle McCord needs to look more comfortable in the opening minutes of games.
Well, now there's just no excuse. There's no excuse for why you're so slow out of the gate, especially when you sit and you say, oh, you have all the weapons and the pieces to be able to do that. You see that that's their starts through the first half. I went and took a look through. In the first quarter, in 8 games, they have 28 points. They have scored 4 times in the first quarter through 8 games this season. That's not going to cut it when you get later into the year.
That's ludicrous for a quarterback who just broke his 300-yard passing game streak today. That they've only put up 28 points in the first quarter. That should be a team that starts hot. That's how you put defenses on their back foot.
I mean, you can see the last 2 games, they have started behind in the first half. It's 35-3. That's not really productive and helpful to provide wins.
You're forcing guys to make plays in positions that they're not comfortable in. Imagine what you can do if these playmakers are comfortable and they're on schedule. The offense is never on schedule.
And even in the game against Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Kyle McCord had said, "Hey, we just keep putting ourselves in a situation where we got to air the ball out. We know you can air the ball out, but let's not force that if we don't have to."
Well, you really don't have to force it at all when you have a all-ACC running back like LaQuinn Allen. 21 carries, 121 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Season highs in yards and touchdowns. Also ties a career high there. Western Michigan last year was last time he had 3 touchdowns in a game. he just continues to impress. Limited against Pittsburgh, but really, whether it's through the air or it's on the ground, LaQuint Allen, deservedly so, is the player of the game. And, of course, you have to mention he scored the game-winning touchdown in overtime for the second time this season to get his team into a bowl game. He's a guy that LaQuint Allen, that Fran Brown, both Jersey guys, he praises him all year. And he loves to have the ball in his hands, especially when the game is on the line. And that's exactly what happened. They saw that the passing game wasn't working. Virginia Tech had the second best passing defense in the ACC coming into today and had the worst rushing defense. LaQuint Allen really exposed that today. And that's why Syracuse was able to pull out that 38-31 victory. Player of the game, LaQuint Allen, no doubt about it. We're not done yet, though, covering this game on Orange Press Pass. We've got a game to play. Possibly some overreactions. We might hear the bold takes of Nate and Luke coming up, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with OPP.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Orange Press Pass rolls on here at CitrusTV. Skyler, Wilkes with Luke Burgess and Nathaniel Cunningham. We've got a game to play. It's Overreaction Saturday, not like the typical Rich Eisen game that he plays on Monday. We got 4 topics, and you guys, I know you guys are both bold-headed. You guys have a lot of takes. You like to make takes. So we're going to start with LaQuint Allen, a guy that I think we're all pretty high on. But what does LaQuint Allen, what is his impact? What does he overall mean to this team overall? Luke, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think LaQuint Allen has the potential to be the best offensive weapon if he is utilized in the right way. And we saw how that can work out today with 121 yards on the ground, right? He is so productive. He's an NFL quality running back. Fran Brown has said that multiple times. Today he proved it.
Is he an NFL quality quarterback? Yeah, or running back? Yeah, but I don't know if you forgot about that guy that's taking snaps underneath center. His name's Kyle McCord, and sure, did he have the best game of his life? No, not at all. But he went 24 for 35, completed nearly 70% of his passes, had 2 touchdowns, almost 300 yards. I disagree. I think Kyle McCord is without a doubt the best player and at his full potential on this Syracuse team. It's no doubt about it.
There's surely a lot of options on offense, like we've talked about for Syracuse football. Kyle McCord and LaQuint Allen, both pretty solid options, but something we, or maybe some casual Syracuse fans learned about today was Justice Ross Simmons, part of a really crowded wide receiver room. Arande Gadsden, although he's technically a tight end, Trevor Pena, Jackson Meeks. But Nate, I know you were really impressed with Ross Simmons' performance today. Do you think he could become the #1 wideout for the Orange?
Do I think he could become the #1 wideout? Absolutely, I do. I think the skills that this guy have translate beyond just what you see on what you saw on the football field today, but actually going out there and getting space. When you look at that first touchdown, reminder, he's suffering that hamstring injury. He went, caught the ball, proceeded to make not just one move, but another move, turn upfield, and then go through and score as he was getting ankle picked. I think this guy has all the assets and the skills that he needs to be the top wide receiver.
Yeah, maybe one day, Nate. I just don't think that right now he is the best receiver on this team. You still have to consider Arande Gadsden's weaponry. He plays that tight end wide receiver hybrid. You're also talking about Zeed Haynes, who hasn't played in weeks. He was back today. You might see him back in the fold in the future. He's just a freshman. There's a lot of pieces to look for on Fran Brown's offense, and I really think that as of now, Ross Simmons, not the best receiver on this team.
All right, well, we might be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves with Justice Ross Simmons hype, but something that is probably more cause of concern is these slow starts for Syracuse, just 3 points in the first half in the last 2 games for Pittsburgh, and we're nearing the home stretch of the season, still got some tough opponents on the horizon. So, Luke, is this an issue, a real cause for concern? Do you see this continuing for Syracuse in the near future?
Yeah, I think this is a huge issue. The first half matters for Syracuse, Skyler, and it's mainly because if the Orange are going to play a team like they did today, or if they're going to play a Pitt, it doesn't work out. Right, you can get away with things like that on a game like today where you were allowed to crawl back into the game because Virginia Tech really didn't have their best weapons and they weren't playing to their full potential. Against a Miami in a few weeks, a top 5 team in the country, that's not going to happen. You see, Miami was down today to Duke, and then Duke falters in the second half. Miami storms back and ends up dominating the game. You're not going to be able to get away with that later on in the year.
You took the words right out of my mouth. The first half, it doesn't matter at all. This is a complete crazy facade. Syracuse came back, they fought, they were able to be successful when they needed to. And you talk about a team like Miami, what are they going to do when they come up? They were trailing to Duke. So, I have no faith that if Syracuse can figure it out and maybe score a little bit, that they can beat Miami.
So Miami comes to town in a few weeks. That's around Thanksgiving time, but you still got BC to play. You still got to go to the Caliber them and face them. So a lot of tough ACC opponents left to play, but the championship itself, potential playoff thing on the horizon, that's still in play. Nate, do you see the Orange getting it done down the home stretch?
Honestly, I think they can win out. I'm going to be so serious. I think that this team can go out and win out the rest of the season. You said, they got to go to Cal. They proved that they can win on the West Coast when they took down UNLV. You got to sit here and you've got who? UConn? Sure, UConn's bowl eligible, but they're 6-3 and they don't really concern me that much. I think they can do it for sure.
I don't think that the ACC title is still in play, Skyler. You look at all the teams ahead of them. Pitt and SMU are duking it out tonight. The team that wins that game is probably in the college football playoff. You look at Miami, who's been a powerhouse all year, weathered the storm against Duke today, came back and won that game. Syracuse has a long way to go. I don't think it's in play this season.
So tough uphill battle there for Syracuse, and I don't know if I appreciate the slander on UConn there, Nate. But either way, we're wrapping things up here on OPP. Our analysts give their final thoughts when we come back. You won't want to miss it. Closing up shop on Orange Press Pass alongside Luke Burgess and Nathaniel Cunningham. I'm Skyler Wilkes, and first, we've talked a lot about the Hill and what happened today in the Dome, but let's go around the NCAA. Some really good games going on, especially out there in Luke's native territory of Western Pennsylvania there in Happy Valley, Penn State and Ohio State. But Luke, what game stood out to you?
I mean, you said it, Skyler. Penn State, once again, can't get it done with James Franklin in Happy Valley. Everyone was saying this should be a primetime game. Penn State's finally going to prove itself. Doesn't happen today. Drew Aller and the rest of the Nittany Lions fall again in their biggest clash of the season.
We've heard a lot about Indiana lately. They're going out there putting the beat down on Michigan State.
So a lot of really good games, but how about we transition to the hardwood? For the next OPP, Syracuse gets the regular season going against Lemoyne. Salt City Derby, you love to see it.
A lot of exciting things coming for Syracuse men's basketball this year.
It should be a good one, a lot of fresh faces, or a lot of action.
All right, so Syracuse, we know, took down Virginia Tech 38-31 in overtime, but there are some negatives, there are some positives to take away. Luke, final thoughts.
And my final thought is that, Skyler, you need to embrace bully ball in November. Things are going to get cold. I know Syracuse plays in a dome. They've still got 2 games on the road, one of those in California, albeit they need to embrace this running mentality. Play hard. play physical, make the other team hurt when they leave the field. That's how Syracuse finishes the season on a high note.
Well, my final thought, a bowl game's not enough, all right? This team has got to have their eyes set on more. They have the ability, they have the skill set, they've proved that they can do it. Now you just got to go out here and win these final 4 games and say, we are a powerhouse in the ACC.
Syracuse going to a bowl game for the 3rd straight season, which hasn't happened since the 1999 season. But that's all. With a 38-31 victory over Virginia Tech, the Orange continue to move on and now improve to 6-2 on the season. With Luke Burgess and Nathaniel Cunningham, Skyler, Wilkes saying so long. Thanks so much for tuning into Orange Press Pass, and we wish our executive producer, Rihanna Abil, a very happy birthday. Thanks so much for joining us.